0.6 out of 4, which emphasized the importance of expanding the investor base, the domestic investor base. How do we do that? I've already talked about insurance companies and pension funds and so on. But this is really an area of great emphasis, I think, which we have to resolve. The second was more consistent secondary market pricing. And that essentially refers to both, one, transparency, so that every player has universal information on trades and transactions, and two, an efficient trading mechanism. So I think there we've made some headway based on the measures that we've taken. But once you get these things together, the ability, I think the opportunity for this market to increase significantly is quite a realistic one. Part of your panel discussion is try and get some answers to these questions. The second question is, well, are there some things we're missing there? Are there other critical factors which need to be addressed? And what are they? If there are others, what are these factors? So that's, I think, something we need to know, because I want to go back to the threshold perception that this is not a market that's going to develop if one or two factors addressed. It requires a balanced approach. It requires a breadth of things to be done to make it work. And third, let's look at the payoffs. What are we expecting? Is it realistic, even after having taken all these steps, to expect significant growth in this market? And if you're looking at a horizon over the next 1 to 3 years, which is when the assessments about infrastructure requirements and the ways in which these are going to be funded, that's going to happen in the build-up to the 12th plan, which will begin on April 1, 2012. But when we get into that planning exercise, when we put that plan together, we need to have some realistic assessment of how much capacity will this market create in terms of being able to fund infrastructure, of fund investment in general. So it makes a lot of sense to put emphasis on these initiatives, these changes, if the payoff is going to be very large. If it's not going to be very large, and if people say, well, we do all of this stuff, we go through, fight the battles, with other regulators, between regulators, with government and everything, at the end of it, you're going to get 3% or 5% increase in volumes. It doesn't seem to make the effort worthwhile. So before we get into this, let's be very clear, or let's have a clear sense of what the payoff is going to be in terms of increased volume. So, you are the people who play this market, you're the people who run it. What is your sense of this, and how much can we expect? I think that is a very, very important question for us to answer, which we really don't have a direct answer to. We certainly have the cross-country benchmarks, but we need it from the bottom up. So I'll leave you with this. That I thought was for me an effective way to both sensitize you to the emphasis, the priority that we're putting on this market, and to the kinds of questions to which we need practical and realistic answers. Thank you very much.
Dr. Gokarn, thank you very much for coming here and providing a lead to all of us. Your views on the debt market and the way forward are valuable and insightful. This will give us the right kind of start that is needed for further deliberations for the rest of the day. I am sure that all of us will benefit from what you have said today, and we are indeed honored by your presence here today. Friends, this surely promises to be an exhilarating day for all of us, as we will be taken through a series of commentaries and views by our eminent panelists on various issues on the debt market. Dr. Gokarn has already set the tone for us by telling us about the importance of this segment for the future of the country. She also mentioned about the constraints faced by the banks in our country in terms of assets and liability management, in terms of financing infrastructure and other long-term financing. All of us know that the infrastructure requirements or the funding requirements are to the tune of 1,000 billion. And this would not be possible unless the corporate debt market really takes off. The long-term debt market is hence one of critical importance, and that is a real role for, is an engine of growth for the financial sector. Our present structure has served us well, but evidently more has to be done to reach more financial sophistication. We at Care Ratings are essentially into rating debt instruments and felt that the time has come to look forward, look to the future, and in that context we decided to organize a debt market summit. I am sure that the deliberations today will bring out new ideas and views that can be implemented. And as Dr. Gokarn mentioned, maybe we could get the answers to the 3 questions that he mentioned today. Mr. Dogra has already mentioned that we are going to have 4 exciting sessions today, and all these sessions are going to be intellectually delightful and stimulating. And I would invite you to participate and indulge yourself in these discussions through the Q&A sessions. Dr. Gokarn will now take questions from the audience as well as the media, and I would request you to use the next 15 minutes to get these answers. Thank you.
We have a formal roadmap in terms of the micro patterns of who can subscribe to the capacity, the need of the economy to tap into global savings, because investment requirements are so high that confining them or constraining them by the preference clearly is that these go directly to funding the fund. Absolutely, I don't disagree with that at all, that many of these things need to be done. Even if they don't have immediate payoffs, they may, as other constraints are dealt with, they will facilitate the development market. But in terms of expectation and looking at the potential contribution from different channels, it's good to have an assessment of what the payoff in terms of our objectives these set of moves will have. Because the reality is that if it's not a low-hanging fruit, if it's not something which will have immediate payoffs, it's that much more difficult to do. And that's, we can look at an ideal situation where things have to be done because they have merit for their own sake, and a more realistic situation where ultimately things are done because they have reasonably large and reasonably certain payoffs. And so I think we have to recognize that as a part of the selling process, if you will, of this agenda. And you're in business, you understand this perfectly. That if you had to make an investment which the payoff was small and uncertain, the chances are your investment committees would say forget it, however important you may feel that it is. So I think we've got to be a little pragmatic about this as well.